JD Vance wasn't in the Situation Room during one of Trump's most daring military operations, and what he revealed about why exposes the real power structure in this White House. The vice president's absence from the Maduro raid wasn't an oversight. It was a calculated decision that tells us everything about how decisions are really made in the Trump administration. On January 3, 2025, the world watched as one of the most audacious military operations in Latin American history unfolded. U.S. Special Forces descended on Caracas, Venezuela, capturing President Nicolás Maduro in what would be codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve. The White House released photos showing President Donald Trump huddled in the Situation Room at Mar-a-Lago with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. But one person was notably absent from those images: Vice President JD Vance. The absence sparked immediate speculation. Where was the second-in-command during this critical moment? Was there tension within the administration? Had Vance been sidelined? In an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail, Vance finally broke his silence, and what he revealed offers a fascinating glimpse into how Trump's chain of command actually operates, and it's not what most people expected. The night of the operation. Let's set the scene. It's the evening of January 3rd, somewhere in South Florida. While President Trump is at Mar-a-Lago preparing to authorize a military strike that would reshape Latin American politics, Vice President JD Vance is 20 miles away in a van with friends. According to Vance's account, he was in what he described as a mobile situation room, essentially a secure vehicle equipped with communications technology that would allow him to stay connected to the operation. Around 10:30 p.m., his phone rang. It was Secretary of State Marco Rubio with the message, "This is going to happen tonight." Now pause here for a moment. The Vice President of the United States receives notification that American forces are about to launch a military operation to capture a foreign head of state, and he's not at the president's location. He's not in the traditional Situation Room in the White House basement. He's in a van with friends. To understand why this happened and what it tells us about Trump's administration, we need to dig deeper. The security dilemma. Vance explained that he and Rubio had a conversation about whether it made sense for the vice president to rush to Mar-a-Lago to be physically present with the president. The answer they arrived at was revealing. It could actually jeopardize the operation. Here's the problem. The vice president doesn't travel alone. He doesn't quietly slip into locations unnoticed. When JD Vance moves, he brings with him what he described as a very large Secret Service detail. We're talking about a motorcade of 30 vehicles with sirens, flashing lights, and all the security protocols that come with protecting the nation's second highest office. Imagine this scenario. It's an hour before Special Forces are about to launch a covert operation in Venezuela. Suddenly, a massive motorcade of 30 cars with sirens blazing pulls up to Mar-a-Lago. News helicopters are overhead. Reporters are scrambling. Social media lights up with speculation about what's happening. And in Caracas, Maduro's security team is watching American news channels, suddenly on high alert. Vance and Rubio made a calculation. Operational security was more important than optics. The success of the mission depended on absolute secrecy. As Vance pointed out, one of the critical reasons that mission was ultimately successful is because no one found out about it. The decision to keep the vice president away from Mar-a-Lago wasn't about exclusion. It was about protecting the mission. The command structure revealed. But here's where it gets really interesting, and where Vance let slip something significant about how Trump's administration actually functions. Vance revealed that he was on the phone with the president and the entire team for approximately 6 hours during the course of the operation. 6 hours. He wasn't cut out of decision-making. He wasn't kept in the dark. He was fully integrated into the command structure, just remotely. This tells us something crucial about Trump's approach to leadership. Unlike traditional administrations that prioritize physical presence and the symbolism of having everyone in the same room, Trump's team appears to operate with more flexibility. The chain of command doesn't break down because people are in different locations. What matters is connectivity. real-time information sharing, and the ability to make rapid decisions. Think about what this represents in modern governance. We're no longer bound by the constraints of geography in the way previous generations were. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy needed his advisors physically present because that was the only way to ensure secure, real-time communication. Today, secure mobile communications allow decision-makers to be distributed while remaining fully connected. Vance also revealed something else important. There were multiple nights when the operation could have happened. He admitted he wasn't in Florida every single night when the mission was possible, but he made sure to be there on the nights when it was most likely, including the night it actually occurred. This suggests a level of planning and coordination that goes beyond what we typically see. The administration was tracking multiple variables: weather conditions, intelligence updates, Maduro's movements, operational readiness. They had to remain flexible, ready to execute on short notice across several potential windows of opportunity. The media narrative versus reality. When asked directly if President Trump was angry about his absence from the Situation Room, Vance scoffed at the suggestion. "No, not at all," he said. "I think it's funny. The media tries to create something out of nothing." This response is revealing in itself. In the immediate aftermath of the operation, media speculation ran wild. Some outlets suggested there was tension between Trump and Vance. Others implied that the vice president had been deliberately excluded or that he wasn't trusted with sensitive operations. Political commentators debated whether this signaled a rift in the administration. But according to Vance, the reality was far more mundane and practical. It was a simple risk-benefit calculation. Would the vice president's physical presence add value that outweighed the security risks? The answer was no. What's fascinating here is the disconnect between how we expect government to function, with everyone physically gathered in iconic rooms making history, and how it actually functions in the age of modern communications. The Situation Room photo op is powerful imagery, but it's not always operationally necessary. This also reveals something about the Trump administration's relationship with traditional protocol. Trump has never been particularly concerned with doing things the way they've always been done. If a different approach makes more sense tactically, that's the approach they'll take, regardless of how it looks or what precedent it breaks. Operation Absolute Resolve. The bigger picture. Let's not lose sight of what actually happened here. Operation Absolute Resolve lasted approximately 150 minutes, 2.5 hours, and resulted in the capture of Nicolás Maduro and his wife by U.S. Special Forces. This was not a minor operation. This was the capture of a sitting head of state, something that carries enormous geopolitical implications. Maduro is now facing multiple federal charges in the Southern District of New York, including narco-terrorism, cocaine trafficking, and possession of machine guns. The United States government essentially conducted a military operation to extract a foreign leader and bring him to trial on American soil. The operational security required for something of this magnitude cannot be overstated. Any leak, any hint that something was about to happen, could have resulted in Maduro fleeing to a more secure location, increasing security around him, or the operation encountering significant resistance that could have cost American lives. The fact that they pulled it off without any leaks is remarkable, and Vance's decision to stay away from Mar-a-Lago to avoid creating the security spectacle that would have inevitably drawn attention was part of that success. What this tells us about modern governance. The Vance revelation, seemingly a small detail about his whereabouts during one operation, actually opens a window into how modern executive decision-making works, or at least how it works under Trump. First, it shows that physical proximity to power isn't always the same as being in the loop. Vance was fully engaged in the operation despite being 20 miles away. He had the same information, the same communication access, and the same input into decision-making as those physically present at Mar-a-Lago. Second, it demonstrates that this administration is willing to prioritize operational effectiveness over traditional optics. They could have insisted that Vance be present for the photo opportunity, for the historical record, for the symbolism of showing a unified command structure. Instead, they made the harder choice. the one that might generate questions and speculation, because it was the right tactical decision. Third, it reveals a command structure that values flexibility and adaptability. The operation could have happened on multiple nights. Key personnel were distributed across different locations. Yet the system worked smoothly, suggesting robust communication protocols and clear lines of authority. Conclusion. JD Vance's casual revelation about his whereabouts during the Maduro capture tells us more about the Trump administration's chain of command than any official organizational chart could. It shows an operation that prioritizes results over ceremony, security over symbolism, and practical effectiveness over traditional protocol. The vice president wasn't excluded from the most significant military operation of Trump's second term. He was strategically positioned to support it without compromising it. In an age where secure communications allow for distributed decision-making, physical presence in the Situation Room is increasingly optional. What matters is being connected, informed, and ready to act. As we continue to watch this administration operate, pay attention not just to who's in the room for the photo ops, but to who's on the phone, who's making the calls, and who's getting results. Because in Trump's chain of command, it's becoming clear that location matters less than connection, and presence matters less than effectiveness. The Maduro operation succeeded because of careful planning, operational security, and a willingness to make unconventional choices when conventional approaches didn't serve the mission. And sometimes, that means the vice president watches history unfold from a van 20 miles away, fully connected, fully engaged, and fully part of the team.